Rorschach, issue 12, Tom King
Yeah.
and Jorge Fornes. Yeah, I mean, obviously we ended issue 11 after the delirious like mind journey of him talking to Myers and the girl, um, to go off to meet Turley and Alan and present his case to them.
He's got a tape recorder with a tape.
He does, yes, and all like. So obviously there was the anticipation that he might kill Turley, right? That was the thing the last issue set up. So all this issue effectively ends up being, because it starts off with him meeting the security guy outside of Turley's office and explaining why he's taking the tape, because typically they don't let in recording devices, yada yada yada. And all this issue is up to a certain point, and this is not to belittle it, I just mean in terms of its art and its pacing and how it handles all the little moments, is you're like, you're trying to read if what he's going to do, because it's all suspense, it's all tension, it's all just ticking down to the moment where is it or isn't it going to happen.
Yeah, because we just know by the end of issue 11 that he's resigned to a certain fate. We don't know what choice he's made yet.
Yep.
We don't know if he's going to fully embrace what Meyerson and the kid, right? We don't know if he's going to just give over the information that he's uncovered, and let Turley know that he knows what their plan was and why, we just know that he's frazzled. Although you were kind of given hints with how he was walking and his posture at the end of that issue, right? Especially looking at what happens in this issue,
Yeah,
you can look back and see.
There's so many little things, and like looking at these first few pages again, the way it keeps focusing on the tape recorder, like there's this idea that if he clicks play in that tape to hear what it actually says, it'll give up everything that he's got planned.
Yeah,
right.
And we don't know this guy's name, right? We don't know who he really is. We just know he was a private investigator hired by Alan, right? Who is Turley's chief of staff, right? That's who, or he's the guy behind the guy, right? He runs Turley's stuff for him. And we don't know what he was about before all of this. He's kind of just the audience, right? Like he is not the everyman, but the
avatar, the blank avatar.
Yeah,
almost.
He's who we're experiencing the story through him almost the entire time, and so when we don't know what he's thinking, though, this was that's been kind of the entire book where
this is the sort of suspense you can only get because you've built it up so well that like you're hanging on every little moment, every close-up panel of the tape recorder handing back to him. Because like I say, if the security guy wanted to click play just to check what was on the tape, it would have given everything up. There's so many of these things, and the way that it focuses on the reactions of Turley as our main character says things like, "Oh, can I take off my coat? Can we have a drink to celebrate?" And then it's got those moments where you think, is he going to like get mad or be a dick? And then he's like, "No, you're quite right." But there's like a little moment of hesitation. There's just these little moments before, where it kind of plays off that something might go wrong, and that's if there's anything even planned here. Because as far as we know, he might just, he might just give up the information and walk away. That might be what he does. But there's like very ominous moments when Turley comes over and like takes a beer and they're sitting there getting ready to have this meeting, and they're being smiley. There's one of the panels at the bottom of one of these pages in the middle, as our main character's taking a drink. He just says, "I'm just glad we're at the end," which is so ominous, right? Because that could mean a number of things.
Right, he's either gonna finish the job, or he's gonna finish the other job.
The other
job,
right?
Right? Like he's either going to start what Meyerson and the kid, finish what they started, or he's gonna finish the investigation, turn everything over. And again, we don't know. Upon hindsight and looking over things again, the beer bottle was all the clue that King needed, really. So you think back to issue 11, the fact that he is sharing the beer through time, right, with the kid, and then that ties that back to here. is just brilliant storytelling.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and it's simple little details like they've got our main character, like the chair he's sitting in's against the window, so the stormy like nighttime window. Well, it's not even stormy; it's dark blue, but it's very different from the light blue. It's on the background of Turley. Like every time it goes to a Turley panel, it's all this light colors behind them.
They contrast very much.
Yeah. So, yeah, so they're explaining this, and in fact, one of my favorite moments in terms of reactions. So they're explaining. Alan's doing a lot of the talking here, and they're explaining things. And they're thanking the main characters. Like, don't worry, son, I'm living forever. Mass people can't change that. With a sly sick smile on his face. And Alan says, and they wouldn't have gotten anywhere close to these people, if it weren't for the help that they got from the Redford campaign. And the close-up, when you turn the page, the close-up panel, as the main character says yeah, as he sips a beer, it just feels so layered with, like, his eyes say what he just said is bullshit. Like, the art is so good at conveying what he's actually thinking.
From the point where Turley goes, "Don't worry, son, I'm living forever. Mass people aren't changing that," to when Turley talks again, right under the all right, I mean, holy shit.
Which, and Joe's so good.
That entire thing is so packed.
It's so packed in tension, but what's so good about that line is you can read that two ways in a thematic sense. In one way, the straight way is that, well, yeah, mass people won't change that because the person who's about to kill you isn't wearing a mask. So you're right. But and then of course you could read it in a more metaphorical way where he is wearing a mask right now. He's pretending to be doing what you're wanting. So there is a mask in a not a literal sense.
Sure. Mass people aren't going to change that. Yeah.
So it works both ways.
Master fabric.
Oh yeah, sure. Not all master fabric. Yeah. So. Yeah, it basically explains the tape. It explains that there's a confession here that he's going to play for him, and we get this just. You can imagine this kind of playing out as if it was a camera, like looking down at the tape as it's playing, and as it starts to roll, you just hear. Like he's taking a while to press play. He's like, "Is it ready? Come on, let's go!" And then you just start getting sound effects as we get closer and closer on this 9-panel grid to the tape playing, and then eventually the bloody hand on the next page comes in and hits play, and it turns out to just be a speech that Turley's made before. It's just a recording of one of his speeches.
So which I thought was maybe, is this the speech that Meyerson and the kids showed up to? But it turned out that no, this was another speech, because there'll be a payoff for that in a minute. Yeah, the bloody hand reveal was top notch.
Yeah, it's so good. Then the next page is a 2-page spread with just them both lying there dead in their chairs.
And I understand the storytelling is what happened in between the panels.
Yeah.
However, I want to know what this man did with that beer bottle that led to this. Because this is some John Wick style stuff. For
sure.
Yeah, man.
So no, excellently well handled. And so this speech is playing out, so we're hearing that, we're reading that.
My bad.
Yeah, right, Matt.
I hit my thing.
And he's this speech is playing, talking about how Redford and his Democrats have had a hold of this country, and the 25 years they've been ruining everything. So we're going to. He doesn't say make it great again, but it's very much the same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And we're going to take it back. Blah 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 blah. And what's so good about it is so there's this page where he goes to get his coat, which he took off. He intentionally took off his coat when he came in. So when he puts his coat back on, he's covering up all the blood that's on his suit jacket, and he's leaving. And the security guy, when he gets out, he's like, "That was quick." He's like, "Oh, I'm going to go in there and check on them." And he's like, "Why are you leaving so early?" He's like, "Oh, they said they wanted to go over some sort of speech that he's making tomorrow about the announcement they're making about this." And so the security guy puts his ear up to the door, and he can hear from the tape Turley saying, "The revolution is in you, it's in me, it's in the country, it's in this soil." And it just sounds like he's rehearsing the speech. So he takes his hand away from the door and says, "Yeah, all right then." And our main character walks free. And the end of this story, the end of this issue, and the end of this whole story is that he's walking down the street. There's a little moment with the people waiting for the car outside the hotel as well. But he's walking. Oh, we can go back to that.
Yeah.
But he's walking down the street, or he's driving down the street, sorry, and he sees that the movie theater is playing a new Pontius Pirate movie. It's the midnight premiere of it. So he goes up and gets a ticket. The usher says, "Well, it's a bit late. The previews are finished. You're going to miss the start of it. It's really good. So you sure why don't you wait till tomorrow?" He's like, "No, I don't wait to wait. I'm going to go." We get a creator cameo here.
Is that Fornes next to him too?
I'm assuming so, just because it looks like Tom King, so I'm assuming the other guy's Fornes. I don't know what it looks like, so.
Yeah, me neither. I'm gonna...
I have to assume. And he goes in, and the end of the story is him watching this movie play out, and it's the Pontius Pirates talking about how you'll never defeat me. I am a hero, and I've sailed all the seas, and I've faced all the injustice I possibly could. But in all those travels and all them storms, I never learned to care for the wisdom of gods and men. The final line is, "Have at ye then, ye bastards. Come and fight. If I die today, I die a pirate." And our main character smiles as he watches. And if you remember back, obviously there's been various discussion in the book throughout issues about Meyerson drawing the comic and about the history of that. Here, if the last issue in particular, which I sort of skimmed through again after I read this, there was talk about, like, our main character constantly said when he was talking to the kid and Meyerson that, "Oh, you draw pirates, those are for kids. I read that when I was a kid. I gave that up." And we've talked a lot about the simplicity of becoming something that stands for something that can be delusional, that can be obviously dangerous, and all the rest of it.
Yeah, so in this reality, right, superheroes are real, but pirates are the ones that were up on the screen in part of pop culture.
Yes.
And so this is effectively our main character embracing the role of a superhero in this world. Like, and he didn't do anything like, no superhero pose, no, superpowers or whatever, but he basically became something bigger through this. And that's being, reflected by, this version on the screen. He's reacting to another creation of Meyerson, right?
Yeah, and it's notable that he, because the kid and especially Meyerson, like they became like this world's superheroes. Meyerson in particular, he became Rorschach, right? He became So our main character, though, for him it wasn't that. For him, it was the fictional one. It was the pirate. It was he became the pirate and he knows that he's going to get caught. Like, there's no way that they don't come for him. And
this seems like a happy ending, right? But like, you have to think about too, when Turley said he's never going to die, he didn't mean that in the physical sense either. The idea of what Turley stands for now, he could have just made everything worse, right? Because now they just gave that a martyr, which I don't know if that's what Rorschach and I'll just say the spirit of Rorschach actually intended, right? Because now, sure, you're done with Turley, but who is ever going to show up next might be just as bad, and they might not be as sloppy. So now this kicks this back to, I read it.
You can weigh it up, though, because it's like, okay, sure, this might give them a martyr and give, like, the conservative side some support, but is that objectively still much, much better than them criminalizing Redford and completely taking him out of power just by default because he's been in this conspiracy to murder Turley?
Right. And that's what my point is. The next person might not be as sloppy, right? Like, without people like our hero here doing what they can, then that's how that side wins. And that's ultimately what I like about this ending here.
Yeah, but much like how Turley's saying, he will never die, and the ID will never die, the same goes for like the other side too. Like, the same goes for our characters.
Well, that goes. This is basically the spirit of the comedian in Rorschach, kind of doing this eternal struggle until the end of time.
Yeah, those ideas will always persist. Yeah, but
I love it.
but it's not necessarily that much of a happy ending as well. There's kind of a sadness to it because like this book has been an examination of how someone can become an extremist or how someone can become delusional and like buy into an idea. And while we might say, okay, he kind of stopped a really bad thing and a bad conspiracy from coming true and all the rest of it, like he still has been brought to this point where he had to go and murder someone in cold blood, and he's sort of like in this happy delirium watching this movie when he's assuredly going to be taken away afterwards, where he's going to be found out, and he doesn't care. Like he's not concerned about this at all. This is not. Although you can maybe read into that's why he doesn't wait for the because when the usher says, "Why don't you come back and see it tomorrow?" He's like, no, has to be just now.
he's on borrowed time.
Yeah, has to be right now. It's funny because there's almost less to talk about in this issue because it is just the climax.
It's very straightforward. This is kind of the denouement, right? Because we had all the mystery pulled together last time, where it went through and kind of explained the entire what he uncovered. And that's the other thing too, is like, for as crazy as Myerson and the kid were talking about the squids and all of this stuff, he has he uncovered all the evidence. It's not like he's just going off half-cocked and murdering Turley. At least if he's a reliable narrator, we know that he was justified, right? Like, there's no sense of, it's very black and white. Again, a theme of of Rorschach himself, right? There's no shades of gray there.
It's black and white to him, but I don't think it's black and white in an overall sense because, like, we know that the kid and Myerson, they like openly thought that Turley was part of a squid invasion, that this was coming from the squids, right? And obviously, our character doesn't necessarily believe that, but he does believe Turley has to be stopped for these other reasons. And we know as readers of Watchmen that the squid thing is not true, right? It's just it's factually false. So here's the thing: is that we can't be sure. Like, as much as we can see the good in what he's done and like the positive outcomes from it, it doesn't make him any more mentally healthy than the other characters who tried to kill him before. He's just got a slightly different motivation, and he's just went at it from a different tactic and a different angle, but it's not justified. It's not healthy. It's not like a positive spin. It still kind of comes from this delusion.
Uncover an actual conspiracy committed by one candidate to frame another candidate for attempted murder.
Yes, that's true. As far as we can tell, that is completely true. Yes.
Right. So that's what I mean, and that him being justified outside of like the whole squid thing, like he actually has the stuff to back it up if need be, right? Which is different than this whole idea, like with the kid having the circus strongman assume the role of Rorschach.
Yeah, but it's still got this sad element to it because he had
100%.
Because he had to become this. He had to become this delirious, I'm going to believe I'm a pirate. And not literally, he's not actually like walking around in a pirate outfit or anything like that, but it's more of a symbolic thing where like he sees himself as the hero of his story, right? He feels like he's become what Pontius Pirate was in the stories he read as a kid, which is that he is stopping the bad guy, he's saving the day, and the problem is that life isn't that simple, and when you try and make it that simple, sometimes right,
and that's the tragedy of Rorschach, is everything's black and white. There's no room for gray.
Yeah, so don't get me wrong, I actually do think there's a lot of nuance in this conversation because there absolutely is some topics that should be treated as a bit more black and white than they actually are, but this is a really interesting examination of a character who is basically fighting against something that most of the audience will look at and agree he's on the right side of this conflict, right? He is on the correct side, he's on the more heroic side, but it's still a sad story of someone going down a rabbit hole and how it's basically saying that anyone can be manipulated to a really dangerous point and be extreme from any angle. And that's what happens to this character over this. And the whole idea of this is that it's someone who a reader of a comic book can actually somewhat relate to, because we all love stories, we all love characters, we all love stories of heroes and villains, and we love to like get into our nerdy side and all the rest of it. It's someone becoming enamored with that idea that they can be more important. Because we've talked a lot about how the kid and Meyerson, that the delusion they possibly have is this like desire to feel that they're more important than they actually are, that they have this grand purpose, and that's where a lot of delusion comes from.
No, knowing from Meyerson where his character of the citizen shares a lot, right? It's basically the question, right? And Rorschach was based on the question and whatnot. That it almost starts kind of with him, and that by the end of this, our main character is kind of a creation of Meyerson in the way that Pontius Pirate and Citizen were, and I like that aspect of it too. That he's as much of a, because of Meyerson, as the he's seeing himself on the screen because they're kind of the same at the end. So, it's very, very good. Fornes on art, there's not a lot of showpieces in this one like we've had, but it's almost the lack of those big showpieces is what makes it work. Like, we don't see the actual murder happen. We see the after effects of it.
It's more reserved, and I think that's part of what helps build the tension, because it is a couple. It's three guys sitting down at a table, and the build up to them sitting down at a table, and it's just. But you're so enveloped in the what's going to happen of it that, and it builds all those little moments where it's trying to play its hand as to what the main character's intentions are. That it's excellently crafted without being showy, and
right.
This book obviously has had big moments in its art throughout the 12 issues, and it's been very well done whenever it has had them. But it's almost making a statement by stripping down. It's kind of like, in a weird way, what I said earlier about like a movie being a movie until that one scene where it just has a single shot and it feels more like a play. Is that more basic element feels special compared to the more dramatic and sort of intricate stuff that's up until that point. And that's not to say that it's not intricate. There's still a lot of choices here about when to go in for close-ups, about when to show panels of everyone versus, single panels versus...
right, we get a page of him that's a bunch of panels of him walking over to put his coat back on. Yeah. It really shows the emotion there. Yeah.
I think that page shows how not disconnected, but like how almost...
casual.
Oh, I was going to say sociopathic, but yeah, sure, casual.
Sure.
How he is in that moment where, in that moment, he can literally just cover up what he's done with a coat. And that's where his mind is that he's done it and now it's over. He puts his coat on and he leaves. And it's just that simple and casual. And if you want to look at it from the point of view as well, that, maybe if this was some grand master plan from the kid and Meyerson, that they knew they were going to fail, so they inspired him to do it, because if he can just walk into the room like this, unsuspected, and just do it, and there is almost a satisfaction because of how cocky Turley is, and just how untouchable he thinks he is. Well,
and also, I almost feel like, looking back over it, right before it happens, the way that Fornes draws Turley, there's like an uncertainness to him. Like, did he figure all this out?
Yeah, is he smart enough to see this coming, or is he not?
Yeah, and it's like, oh man, and we'll never know, right? Because he starts to play the tape. We don't know what happens, and so there is still that sense of the unknown here, right? Like, yeah, man, it's real good.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Anyway, even that last line, come and fight. If from the movie, if I die today, I die a pirate. So it's basically this idea that his life is over because of what he's done, but he's going to go out on his terms, feeling, delusional or otherwise. He feels like he is this. He feels like he's achieved himself. And again, we're saying pirate because that's what he's admiring, but it's not literally a pirate. It's just the hero of his story. Like he's had purpose. So, all right, Matt, what are you rating Rorschach issue 12?
I'm gonna give it 9.5.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I think I'll go 9.5. And I guess the reason why it's not getting a 10 is just because it maybe peaked once or twice elsewhere, And because it's not quite at that peak, but it's a very satisfying conclusion that makes so much sense. So, I think this is going to be an excellent 12-issue hardcover to hand to people and say, no, this is a wonderful comic book. I mean, obviously, you do have to have read Watchmen, I think, to get the themes and to really appreciate what it's doing. But, you know,
I'd say the vast majority of people who are interested in checking out something like this, if they're at that stage of their comic reading, have probably read Watchmen.
Yeah, probably. I'm thinking more about a new reader. I'd say, hey, read Watchmen, and then if you like that, read this.
When you like that.
Yeah, this is a sequel. Well, I say F because if they don't like Watchmen, then the comic books aren't for you. Just go back to cartoons.
Jeez.